Jacksonites. Welcome to the grand finale of My Honda-thon, episode 12. Yes, indeed, we finally come to the end of this long-ass journey, which I probably could have ended a couple of weeks ago, but shit got in the way, and just other stuff happened. I gained 100, or I got 100 subs and all that kind of shit. So, apologies to anybody who was hoping that this would end quicker, and also apologies to anybody out there who was really looking forward to this review. Ooh, I see we already have one viewer, but I saved the best for last, and I mean that sincerely. Today, I will be reviewing, in my opinion, the criminally underrated and criminally looked over. Hello, Omega Picture. The criminally underrated and criminally looked over 1965 kaiju movie, Frankenstein versus Baragon, or if you want to go by its American title, Frankenstein Conquers the World, though I prefer Frankenstein versus Baragon. Yes, indeed, the first installment of the Gargantua duology, as I start to call it, unfortunately. Released in 1965, directed by Ishiro Honda, and oh my god, this movie, to me, this movie honestly is a little difficult for me to review because of how much I like this movie. But let me get my history of the film out of the way. I had always known of this movie's existence. Get this fucking hat out of here. I'd always known of this movie's existence when I was young. In fact, I first heard of it through James Rolfe's Godzilla-thon when he mentioned that there was the original plan to make Godzilla versus Frankenstein, and he mentioned that Toho had scrapped that idea in favor of King Kong versus Godzilla. However, they didn't want to exactly waste the idea, so they made Frankenstein versus Baragon. And his description of it was about a Godzilla-sized Frankenstein's monster fighting against a giant monster named Baragon. And admittedly, when I was a kid, that concept sounded kind of stupid to me. However, as I got older, I started to look at this film in a new light. I was really determined to, or I really wanted to see the film after I saw Adam Noyes' review of this movie for Ishiro Honda-thon. After that, I really wanted to see this, and after a while, I noticed that the DVD for this movie had gone down to a reasonable price. Yes, I know Frankenstein. Frankenstein is 20 meters in this movie. That's around 60-something feet tall. But anyway, shit. Where was I? Oh yeah, the DVD was to a reasonable price, so I purchased it and I watched it. And oh my god, I was so blown away by this movie. I was really hoping that this movie would be better than War of the Gargantuas. And I was really hoping that this movie would pleasantly surprise me when I finally got around to seeing it. And thankfully, my wishes came true. This is hands down, even though I've seen this movie twice, this is hands down one of my absolute favorite kaiju movies in existence. And in my opinion, blows War of the Gargantuas completely out of the goddamn multiverse. I equate Frankenstein Conquers the World and War of the Gargantuas like this. Where is it? It's like comparing The 1990 to It 2017. In my opinion, which is better? Well, this action will answer your question. And imagine this being Frankenstein Conquers the World and this being War of the Gargantuas. Yeah, that'll answer your question. Frankenstein versus Baragon is a kick-ass fucking movie. In my opinion, it is one of Yoshiro Honda's best films. And without a complete shadow of a doubt. Yes, better than King Kong vs. Godzilla. That goes completely without saying. I'll get the piece of shit later. So, anyway, I say this with 100% meaning. Not counting Ishiro Honda's Godzilla movies, this is my favorite Ishiro Honda movie that is non-Godzilla related, tokusatsu and kaiju wise. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. This movie, in my eyes, is a true masterpiece. I shit you not. Now, granted, I have yet to see a true negative opinion towards this film, except maybe Adam Noyes, because he's come out and said that basically his opinion on the film is that for him it's a mixed bag. But outside of that, I've yet to see other people other than him come out and say this movie's a piece of shit. This is one of Ishiro Honda's worst movies. I've never seen anybody whose opinion says that, thankfully. I guess I will float. Oh well. Anyway, so let's get into the plot of Frankenstein vs. Baragon. I will be reviewing the Japanese version of the film. I will not be reviewing the American cut. So the prologue of the film is set in Nazi Germany during the very tail end of World War II. A Kriegsmarine officer, followed by 3 commandos, barges into the lab of a one Dr. Reisendorf. I'm not the best with German names, so please forgive me. And he has orders to seize the immortal heart of the Frankenstein monster, of which this doctor is busy experimenting on. The heart is the heart is transported by a U-boat to be passed off to their Japanese allies via the Atlantic Ocean. However, in the Indian Ocean, off the Maldives, the U-boat meets up with the Japanese Imperial Navy submarine to make the exchange, and they are sighted by an Allied forces scout plane, and they are proceeded to be bombed. But not before the Kriegsmarines pass the heart contained in a locked chest to the Japanese people, who take it back to Hiroshima to be further examined. But just as the experiments on the heart are about to begin, the atomic bomb is dropped on Hiroshima by the Allied forces, with the heart and the heart and the experiments vanish amidst the atomic explosion. 15 years later, in 1960, a feral boy is running rampant throughout the streets of Hiroshima, catching and eating small animals such as dogs, cats, rabbits, and squirrels and shit like that. And this occurrence comes to the attention of a scientist named Dr. James Bowen, played by the late great Nick Adams, and his assistants Suego Togami and Kenichiro Kawaji, played by Tadao Takashima and Kumi Mizuno, respectively. In 1961, they investigate and find the boy hiding in a cave on the beach, where a a group of villagers who are pissed off at the boy have almost caught him, but and this boy catches media attention and is taken care of by the scientists. There's another event that evades the public's eye, but that'll be explained upon later. And once this boy is taken to a hospital, it's discovered that he's actually Caucasian, which is bullshit because he's clearly Japanese. And his body is building a resistance to radiation, a strong resistance to radiation, rather than getting sick from it. The former Imperial Navy officer Kawai, who brought the heart of Frankenstein's monster to Japan, is now working in an oil factory in Akita Prefecture when a massive earthquake shakes the foundations of the refinery and an offshore drilling tower which results in its collapsing. And as the ground splits open, Kawhi glimpses something that looks like a monster peering through the crack in the ground, and it's giving off an unearthly glow before it is obscured by collapsing wreckage. Meanwhile, Dr. Bowen and the two scientists find that this boy is growing in size due to an intake of protein-rich foods. And afraid of his level of strength, the scientists lock and chain the boy away in a jail cell. And Suiko, who actually genuinely cares for this boy, feeds him protein-rich food in order to sustain him. However, Dr. Bowen is visited by Kawai and tells him that the boy could have grown from the heart of the Frankenstein monster, as the boy was seen in Hiroshima more than one time before. And at Bowen's advice, Dr. Kawaji confers with the aging Dr. Riesendorf in Frankfurt, and he tells Kawaji the story of the Frankenstein monster and its seemingly virtual immortality due to its intake of protein-rich food. Riesendorf recommends cutting off a limb from the monster, whether it be an arm or a leg, and speculating that a new one will grow back in its place, kind of like a lizard. When it loses its tail, a new tail will grow back. However, when relating this to his fellow scientists when he returns to Japan, Suiko strongly objects to this method and fearing that nothing will actually grow back if we do cut a limb off. And even when Bowen suggests that they wait a little longer to, kind of think it over, Kawaji decides to go behind his back and attempts to sever one of the now gigantic monster's limbs. However, he is interrupted by a TV crew. He allows them to film the monster. However, they piss him off when they shine bright studio lights in his face, and he breaks out of the jail cell, but in the process, he kills two crew members. The monster, after this, now from this point being just known as Frankenstein, breaks loose and goes on the run from the Japanese authorities. There is a bit of a sweet moment between Frankenstein and Suiko on the balcony of her home before he runs away when the police are coming closer. And while Frankenstein is on the run throughout the Japanese mountain range, he travels to many places from Okoyama, from which he eats a lot more animals, to Mount Ibuki, where his childlike activities, because he's retarded as all living shit, which involves throwing trees at birds and trying to trap a giant wild boar for food, they end in disaster. Unbeknownst to Dr. Bowen and his fellow scientists, the monster known as Baragon, who Kawai saw earlier at the oil refinery, is going on a rampage throughout Japan. Tunneling under earth, he pops out and ravages villages, eating people and animals, and just leaving a massive amount of destruction in his path. Many people believe that this is Frankenstein's fault, which is fucking stupid, but whatever. Um, and Frankenstein, in the process, narrowly escapes being hunted down by the military. But before Dr. Bowen and his assistants have no choice but to dismiss Frankenstein, Kawhi returns to tell them that Frankenstein may not be responsible for the disasters and that it could be the work of something else, of course, this being Baragon, who he saw in Akita. He tries to convince the Japanese military, but it falls upon deaf ears. But Kawaji still wishes the scientists the best in finding Frankenstein. Dr. Bowen, Suiko, and Kawaji then form a search party and venture into the Japanese forest, which they believe that Frankenstein is dwelling. But Kawaji then proceeds to attempt to kill Frankenstein, to Dr. Bowen and Suiko's surprise, believing that Frankenstein could be dangerous because of his monstrous nature. And he also believes that not even the sweet Suiko could not even tame him. His plan is to blind Frankenstein with chemical grenades and capture him to recover both his heart and his brain. Kawaji presses on to find Frankenstein. He tosses a grenade into the forest. However, the ensuing explosion awakens Baragon and he attacks. Kawaji and Bowen try to stop Baragon with grenades, but this seems to just egg Baragon on further. And right as he's about to swallow up Suiko, Frankenstein comes right out of nowhere and comes to the rescue. The two then get into a spectacular fight amongst the Japanese landscape. However, during the fight, Frankenstein makes two torches and uses them to beat Baragon. However, he tosses one, and it starts to set the remaining forest on fire. So the fire quickly gets out of control. However, Frankenstein ends up killing Baragon by choking him and snapping his neck. And right as the fire seems to drive Frankenstein out of the forest, a giant octopus comes right out of butt-the-fuck nowhere and snares Frankenstein and drags him into a nearby lake, seemingly to his watery death, thus ending the film. So how about this plot? Well, you definitely can't say that this movie sure as hell ain't original. I actually really do like this plot. There's a lot of... I like the dark tone of this movie. This movie definitely does have a very dark, foreboding, definitely a more mature tone to the overall experience that I really do like. I've gone on the record stating that while I don't mind darker kaiju movies, I have a lot more fun with the campier stuff. I mean, hell, my favorite Godzilla movie is Godzilla Final Wars, and while that's definitely not exactly a campy film, it is a lot more action-packed, and it's not like Shin Gojira or Gojira 54 levels of dark. Uh, but there are some exceptions to films that have a really dark tone that I really like. This one definitely being one of them, and it's probably very, very high up on that list. So with all that said, let's get into the pros of Frankenstein vs. Baragon. Overall, the cast of characters are very, very solid. Nick Adams does a very good job as Dr. Bowen. I think, yeah, James Bowen. Yeah, he does a really good job. I don't know if this was before or after his performance in Invasion of the Astro Monster. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now. This movie came out in Japan in August 8th, 1965. And Invasion of the Astro Monster. Came out in December of 1965. So, yeah, this movie came first. Frankenstein versus Baragon came first. I'll be damned. Well, anyway, this being his first kaiju movie, um, for Toho, Nick Adams gives a really, really, really solid performance as Dr. Bowen. Kind of he's kind of stereotypical scientist character. However, he is also the stereotypical lead man's hero type character. So he's kind of both rolled into one. And it's kind of a shame that a lot of his other character, well, he committed suicide before he truly reached his prime as a Toho actor, unfortunately, due to a lot of unfortunate circumstances. But it's kind of a shame that a lot of his characters, or not a lot of his characters, but any more of his other characters that he played for Toho films weren't quite like this level of blend of the hero character and the scientist character, because he pulls it off really well in this film, in my opinion. He's one of those characters also that is, he's one of those who sees both sides of the existing conflict, and I'll explain that in just a minute after I talk about the other two characters. Kumi Mizuno, who plays Suiko Togami, she is the scientist who is all heart. She's very emotional when it comes to her work. She's the one who has all the heart of this team. She wants to care for things that are in danger. She wants to care for animals and people who are in danger or who need their help and their care. She's like a mother figure towards Frankenstein, which I really do like. She calls him boy. She just simply calls him boy. She doesn't call him a monster or Frankenstein. She just calls him boy, which I really do like. She's kind of like either the protective older sister or the motherly figure towards Frankenstein, which I really do like. And Tadao Takashima, who was a guy who played the main scientist in Son of Godzilla, plays Kenichiro Kawaji. He is the scientist who is all mind. He's the true scientist to a fault. He has no heart whatsoever. He just wants all he wants with Frankenstein is to study him, cut him up, and learn from him. Kind of like the main villain character in The Shape of Water, actually, now that I think about it. But he's the one who just wants to cut Frankenstein up, not give two shits about his emotions or the fact that he's a human being. He doesn't consider Frankenstein to be a human being. He just considers him to be a monster. Which is bullshit, because Frankenstein is human. He's retarded, as all live and fuck, but he is still a human, and he has human emotions, so he's still human. And Tadao Takashima does a really good job as this character. He's kind of that character that you're supposed to hate because he's just an asshole. And what I mean by Dr. Bowen being seeing both sides of the existing conflict is that it's very obvious that his type of character, he has mind, but he also has heart. He does want to learn from Frankenstein, and he does want to study Frankenstein as a scientific find, but he also has heart, and he doesn't want to hurt Frankenstein. He also does want to care for Frankenstein. So he's kind of caught between a pissing match between Suiko and Kenichiro. It's understandably frustrating for that type of character. And Nick Adams does a really good job of playing him. And the rest of the supporting characters, they do a good job. Yoshio Tsuchiya plays, let's see, what was the guy's name? Officer Kawai. He does a good job, though admittedly he doesn't really have that much to do with the plot. But still, he does a decent job. And the rest of the supporting characters throughout the film, they do great. As I said, pro number 2, I love the tone of this movie. It's very dark. It's very serious. It's very mature, and it almost at times kind of has a very violent and almost horror movie-esque type tone to it. This is usually around the stuff that involves Baragon, because Baragon is just a carnivorous monster going on a rampage, and That's something I actually really do like about this film too, is that it shows that these monsters have to eat. They have to eat something. Frankenstein is clearly omnivorous, but he does like meat, and he eats animals and such. He tries to catch a giant boar, for Christ's sake. And Baragon is clearly carnivorous. He seeks out chickens and horses and even humans to eat. Um, and he just swallows them down like there's no like nobody's business. And that's something that I actually think is a really underrated trait in a lot of kaiju movies, is that we don't really know what they eat. And seeing these monsters try to eat whatever they want or eat what they need, it's really cool in my opinion, and it kind of cements this movie's tone as being a lot more mature and a lot more dark, um, which is great. Pro number 3 is that the pacing for this movie is overall really, really, really solid. Um, it feels very cinematic. It has a slow first act, or not really a slow first act, but it has a moderately paced first act. It sets up the initial conflict of the film. It sets up the characters well, and it sets up the backstory to the events of the movie that are going to unfold. The second act is The second act is a lot slower in pace. However, I have said in the past that I don't like a slow pace. However, for the second act in this movie, it does work because of the slow pace. We're getting to know the characters, and we're getting to know Frankenstein himself. We're watching the conflict of the film unfold before our very eyes, piece by piece, and it's really, really great. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. And the third act of the film is definitely the quickest paced of the entire film. Uh, this is the part of the film where a lot of the action in the movie takes place in, and especially having that final monster fight. I'll get to that in just a few. But the third act is a lot more quickly paced, but not so much to the point where it kind of it bogs down the film. It's fastly paced enough to the point to keep it entertained, but not to be a problem. Pro number 4 is that the special effects are amazing. Oh my god, the special effects are so awesome. Wait. I gotta write something down here. Okay. The special effects in this movie are fucking outstanding. There's a lot of location shooting in this movie, but there's also a lot of sets, and the sets themselves are very well done. There's a lot of not forced perspective, but there's a lot of composite shots to showcase giant Frankenstein and small humans. While they're clearly composite shots, they are definitely well executed, and a lot of them are done at night. So that's it shows that the filmmakers were smart and they're trying to hide the composite shots by doing them at night. So in that case, they look good, or they look better. Um, Frankenstein himself, it's not played by a man in a suit. It's actually a real man who just happens to be a special effect because he's made to look giant. He's kind of like a prototype Ultraman, in fact. Um, he technically does wear a costume, but it's just ragtag fur clothes. It's like caveman clothes, essentially. Um, but a lot of special effects done with him are really well done. The sets that are made to make him look giant are really well constructed. Like his jail cell looks good, uh, even though it's like a basic jail cell. The way they make it look, it's convincing that this creature is supposed to be 20 meters tall. So in that case, it's great. But a lot of the outside mountainscape sets that are made look really good. I totally bought them as being part of the Japanese mountainscape. Watching Baragon burst his way through the mountain cliff or underground to just erupt out of the ground and roaring, and he starts just going on his rampage. It's awesome. It is so freaking cool. And the final set that they used for Frankenstein and Baragon's final battle is very well constructed. It's very large. Um, oh, and also the effect that they used for Baragon's heat ray, even though it pretty much does look like Godzilla's atomic breath, except it's red. That looks good too. I wish Baragon used it in his later appearances. That's actually kind of an issue with that I have with him in GMK. But still. And also the way they execute Baragon's burrowing ability is really really cool. I can't exactly explain how they did it, but it's done in a convincing manner. Anyway, the last set that they use for Frankenstein and Baragon's fight, it's very large, it's very open, it's very spacious, and it allows the two combatants to literally just go to town and have fun. Very, very, very well constructed. The next pro that I have is the monster action. There's really only one monster fight, but holy shit is the final battle in this movie freaking awesome. It is the perfect length, in my opinion. It's not too short like a lot of Godzilla movies, thankfully, or Ultraman episodes, which I'll get to that in just a minute. But the final battle for this movie is very, very well executed. A lot of it was improvised. Eiji Tsuburaya told... Hiro Nakajima plays Baragon in this movie. I can't remember who plays... hang on, I can actually find it here. Koji Furuhata, who plays Frankenstein. Frankenstein told these two, basically, for their fight, is to just go to town, have fun, beat the shit out of each other if you want. Just like what they did for Sanda and Gyra in War of the Gargantuas. They just told them, go to town and have fun. Just kind of wing it and pray. Though this fight definitely still has choreographed parts in it, a lot of it also was improvised, and it's really cool for that. They take the King Kong versus Godzilla approach for this movie, and that one is the speedster and one is the tank. And the tank obviously being Baragon and Frankenstein being the speedster. Baragon can do a lot of damage, and he's super strong, and he can take a lot of punishment. But Frankenstein is really fast. He can dance circles around Baragon, and whenever he gets knocked down, he just gets right back up. It's awesome. And this fight also feels like a prototype 19 or Showa era Ultraman style fight, especially a prototype fight for the original Ultraman series. Frankenstein is a grappler. He's a big time grappler in this fight. In fact, his traditional pose is him crouching low with his hands splayed out. That's a classic grappling pose, especially in something like judo or jiu-jitsu. You stay low to the ground and you keep your arms out. That's what Frankenstein does a lot in this movie, and his grappling skills are very, very solid. And there's a lot of judo techniques integrated into his fighting style. Not intentionally, it's not like Frankenstein learned judo, but I'm sure that the actor who played Frankenstein was skilled in judo or some type of grappling martial art, so he incorporated that into his fighting style. And also, Hiro Nakajima does a really good job as Baragon. He definitely brings the Godzilla approach to Baragon, making him just be a lumbering brute. And I say, no, I don't think Frankenstein is physically stronger than Baragon. He's definitely the speedster, though I'm not saying that Frankenstein is weak, because he's strong enough to lift Baragon clean over his head. I definitely think Baragon is the physically stronger of the two. Though, admittedly, not by a large amount, but by still a bit of a significant amount. But anyway, and also watching Frankenstein interact with his surroundings is also really fun to watch. Well, not really fun, but it's really engaging. That's the best way I can describe it. It's really engaging to watch. Watching him interact with his surroundings, how he reacts to people who may try to come look for him, or how he interacts with the military who are trying to look for him. Like he doesn't specifically just attack them. If they attack him first, he mainly just runs, but he does attack if he's cornered, and all he really does is just charge through their uh, barricades, giving no shits about anything that gets in his way. But once he's out of harm's way, he continues to run and hide. And also, Baragon's rampages are very well executed. The miniature sets are well made. The explosions are well done. Overall, the special effects and the monster action are really, really top notch. Some of the best that Showa era monster movies have to offer, in my opinion. The next pro that I have is the monsters, even though I kind of have talked about them. Koji Furuhata as Frankenstein gives a very, very solid performance as Frankenstein. This is a very different take on Frankenstein, in my opinion, even though it is also somewhat reminiscent of the way Boris Karloff played Frankenstein in the original Frankenstein film. Very childlike, but also very animalistic. Though this version definitely takes those two aspects and like blows them up to 10. Because like I said earlier, Frankenstein is retarded as fuck. He's very childlike as fuck too. But that's part of his character. He's not a natural born human, so it would make sense for his mental capacity to be less than average, I'll just say. But he does a really good job. He does a really good job with his facial expressions, which does make sense because he is a human, and humans and apes and such use a lot of facial expressions, and he does a really good job. And there's also his body language too. He does a really good job with. I feel like in some, yeah, exactly, similar to the Hulks. I feel like in some cases, some of the best acting stems in performances where you don't speak a single word, like Doug Jones's performance in The Shape of Water. I believe that not only is The Shape of Water Doug Jones's best performance, I feel like that is one of the greatest performances given by any actor in any movie in the last 10 years. And this movie is not much of a difference. The guy who plays Frankenstein, in my opinion, does a phenomenal job as Frankenstein. His body language is easy to read. He's very noticeable when he's mad, but he's also kind of he's sympathetic when he's calm and having a tender moment with Kumi Mizuno's character. Like the scene where he sees her at her balcony at her home. When he finally sees her, his whole body just seems to relax, and he kind of gives a retard derpy smile when he sees Kumi Mizuno's character, which is really, really cool. And like I said earlier, Haruo Nakajima does a really good job as Baragon, even though it's standard monster stuff, but still, it's Haruo Nakajima. How can you go wrong? May he rest in peace. But overall, the monsters in this movie are pretty fucking awesome. And in my opinion, Baragon is one of the most underrated Toho kaiju out there. Baragon is a total badass. I love his design. I love his power set. I like that he's a very terrestrial animal. I like the fact he has a projectile weapon, even though it's only been used in games and comics, unfortunately. Another film appearance that he's been in, he hasn't used it. That would have gone a long way against combating Godzilla and GMK, in my opinion. But I blame Shizuke Kaneko for that, so who the fuck cares? And the last pro that I have for this movie is the music score by Akira Ifukube. Holy crap, this is one of my favorite Akira Ifukube scores. I would definitely say it's his third his third darkest music score in existence. The darkest being Rodan, the second being Gojira, and then third comes this film. It's very foreboding. It's very eerie. It's very grim at times. And it also is very prototypical for Akira Ifukube's score for War of the Gargantuas, which I believe was actually one of the few good things that I had to say about War of the Gargantuas, is that the music score for that film is very good. Here it is also very good, but I definitely do like this one better because it fits this movie's tone a bit better than the score did for War of the Gargantuas. But overall, Akira Ifukube's score for this movie is really fucking cool. So with all these good things to say about Frankenstein versus Baragon, are there any elements of it that sink? Yes. One. Both of this movie's endings. The copy of the film that I watched was the Japanese version. And the version that of the ending for this movie was the octopus ending. How some may say that it makes sense for an octopus to be here because it explains War of the Gargantuas. That may be true, but I still say that this ending is fucking stupid. Fucking stupid. Why would a giant octopus travel from the ocean to the middle of the Japanese mainland just to fight and eat Frankenstein and drag him into a lake? Why? Granted, I know the reason for out-of-universe explanation, and that's because Henry G. Saperstein was a big fan of the King Kong versus Frankenstein fight, or King Kong versus Octopus fight from King Kong versus Godzilla, and he said to Ishiro Honda, I want a scene with an octopus in this movie. So they said, okay, so we'll bring an octopus, and they did. And it's fucking stupid. Henry G. Saperstein didn't like that ending, so he said, make an earthquake ending. And you already know how I feel about but the fuck nowhere earthquake endings, Son of Kong. However, that one also does make sense if you think about it, because of Baragon burrowing around the ground that Frankenstein and Baragon were fighting on. All the tremors and the vibrations of their fight caused the weak infrastructure of the ground to give way, which, granted, yes, that does make sense, but it's still fucking stupid. Both endings are fucking stupid. Yes, I agree. The movie should have just ended with with Frankenstein killing Baragon and just having him be transported to an island somewhere that's got plenty of food on it, and just let him live there in peace. That still could explain War of the Gargantuas, but no, Frankenstein has to die. And you know how I feel about monsters that just have to die for the sake of dying to have a sad ending. But with all that said, I'm going to wrap this review up. Surprised I don't have that much, admittedly, not as much as I thought to say about it. Guys, this movie is awesome. This movie is fucking awesome. In my opinion, it's one of Ishiro Honda's best films. It's one of the best kaiju movies ever made. One of the most underrated kaiju movies ever made. And in my eyes, is one of my favorite kaiju movies ever made. Had I seen this movie back when I made my top 20 list of favorite kaiju movies with Justin Tang, this movie would have been very high on that list. In fact, I may just have to redo that list on my own on this channel sometime in the future and put that on there as where it should be. So with all that said, my rating for this movie, despite both of the endings for the film being fucking stupid, I am going to give this movie a perfect solid 10 out of 10. This is a fan-fucking-tastic film. One of my favorite kaiju movies. One of Ishiro Honda's best movies. Without a doubt, my favorite non-Godzilla Ishiro Honda kaiju movie. Bar none. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And also with that said, I'm going to pull something out of my ass. Not literally, but... And I'm going to rank all 12 of Ishiro Honda movies that I have reviewed. And I'm going to save that for another video. Right after... Or actually, no, I guess I'll do it now. Yes, Omega Picture, this is the last episode of my Honda-thon. If I do get my hands on some other Ishiro Honda movies in the future, I'll review those. However, the only two that I'm really interested in seeing is Half Human and The Human Vapor. And those movies aren't likely to be getting DVD releases anytime soon. I could be wrong. I hope I am. I hope they do get re-released in the States on DVD. But until that time, there'll be no more Ishiro Honda movies, Ishiro Honda movie reviews, unless I finally do decide to re-review the Godzilla movies. Okay, so give me just 1 second. Actually, yeah, I'll save that for another video. My ranking of Ishiro Honda movies video. I think I'll give that or get that out to you guys tomorrow. So, with all that said, I hope you people, or not you people, I hope you guys have enjoyed my my Honda-thon. I had a lot of fun doing this, and thank you to all the guests that I had join me for my Honda-thon. Those aren't going to be the last appearances of those guests on my channel. At least for one of them, hopefully. But for like Jack Buchanan and Movie Buff Productions, they'll be reappearing on my channel. Excuse me, from time to time throughout. And again, thank you very much for watching my Honda-thon. This has definitely been the biggest success on my channel thus far. I've gained over 100 subs since then. Or I gained quite a few subs, and I managed to reach 100 subs since I started doing this. I've gotten a couple hundred views since then, which is really good. I'm very thankful for all that. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Share this video with your friends. What is your favorite non-Godzilla Ishiro Honda tokusatsu movie? Comment below and let me know, please. I am very interested in hearing your opinions. Share this video with your friends and look forward to the conclusion or the last couple of parts of my movie collection videos. And also look forward to my ranking of my Honda-thon video, which will come out hopefully tomorrow. And that video is not going to be too terribly long. It'll be like 25 minutes or so, but still, look forward to that. And thank you very much for watching. And as always, go out, grow big, kick some kaiju action, kick some kaiju ass, and save the girl that becomes your motherly figure. And as always, I will see you in the next video.